Have I ever considered using a Necron Air Wing Detachment? I answer this and more in this month's Q&A. Nick speaking, and welcome to this video. And if you're new to the channel and you want to keep up to date with the Wonders of Warhammer 40k, then please subscribe and hit the bell button so you don't miss an upload. And today I am going to be answering your questions from the previous Q&A video. I'm going to do this video unedited. Hopefully it will be nice and relaxed and chilled. I have my cup of coffee with me, and that brings me to a question that I want to ask you. So, when you go into an exotic coffee shop, what is your auto order? Personally, I order cappuccino, but I'd love to know what you like to order. Whilst you're there, don't forget to ask me a question for next month's Q&A. Right, let's get on with the questions from the last episode. And the first question is from 36, and he says, what would you think of an expansion of Necron forces specifically comprising of Canoptics? Either a splinter faction like Harlequins, or more of an internal split like Eldari? Wraiths, Wraith Guards, Wraith Blades, Wraith Lords, etc. It's got another question as well, but what do I think of that? So I've sort of said this on many occasions really, that I'm quite happy with my codex. Honestly, I wouldn't be bothered about having a splinter faction. My codex does me fine and I'm quite happy with it, so I wouldn't necessarily want to see that, to be fair. If I want to make a Canoptic like themed army, I can do that with just using the codex anyway, so I don't think it's really like necessary. The second question from 36 is, the music in the background of this video reminds me a lot of my childhood. It will be the same music that you're hearing now. Where did you get it? And is it from RuneScape? I'm 80% sure it is. Okay, so I got it from the editor. It's basically the built-in music. You get like 6 or 7 tracks. It's quite good because you can change the intensity of the music, which changes like how it sounds. But yeah, it's as far as I'm aware, it's not from RuneScape. It's just the free editing software music, basically. But it does me quite nicely. Thank you for the question. Okay, so the next question is from Capatan Morgan's Wargames, and he says, what is your least favourite faction in terms of opponents? Is there any faction you have never played against, or least often army you have played against? And then here's another question. So there's 3 questions here. So the first question is, what is your least favourite faction in terms of opponents? It's a tough one because I haven't necessarily played like every army that's out there. At this moment in time, it's going to be Thousand Suns, least favourite. Yeah, just, you know, having the Magnus there, and then everything with a 4+ invulnerable save, a psychic phase which my Necrons, you know, can't deny. It's quite a nasty, fast army that's sort of difficult to deal with. So I think that's probably my least favourite at the moment, from my gaming experience anyway. He says, is there any faction that you've never played against, or least often army you have played against? Yeah, there's going to be a number actually, because I have a very limited amount of opponents. I've never played against the Custodes, which seem to be quite a nasty army. I think I've played against the other armies probably at least once anyway. But Custodes, I've never played against them. So yeah, I'm going to say that. Last question. Now, the 3 Seraptic list is doing reasonably well recently. Has this enticed you into thinking about buying more of them? Yeah, I've seen that. There's 3 Seraptic lists, so I think it's 3 Seraptics, a Stalker, and I think a HQ, like a Cryptic or something. But that's the list, 2,000 points, and it had done pretty well in a tournament. It hasn't tempted me to get 3, to be fair, because, well, I'm not really that competitive of a player. You know, I enjoy making a list which is going to do well, but I wouldn't buy models. I don't buy models specifically to make the nastiest list I can, you know. I've got a good selection of models, and a lot of them I do need more duplicates of. So I need more Triarch Stalkers. I've only got 1 of those. I do want at least another one of those. The Seraptic, I'm happy to have 1. I don't play enough people to probably warrant having more than 1. So I don't really play competitive people, apart from occasionally I play Ace Face and a few YouTubers, and of course Richard, Capatan Morgan's Wargames. So no, it hasn't enticed me to get another one. If I came into loads of money and I was all of a sudden rich, I might consider buying another one, just because they look cool. And I suppose I did build my first one with the idea in mind, because I built it quite posed. It's quite torn, it's got its arm out and stuff. I did have the intention that if I got another one, I'd build it normally, so it'd be sort of have 2 different poses. So maybe in the back of my mind, subconsciously, I was thinking about having a second one. Thanks for the question, Richard. So next up is from Craig Tuff, and he says, which bad guy was the one you most wanted to see get their butt kicked in Star Trek? That is a really hard question, and I don't have a bad guy that springs to mind. Now, one thing in Star Trek I'm not a huge fan of, and that is Section 31. They're not really bad guys, are they? But, well, maybe they are. Section 31, yeah, I wasn't a fan of them. And the guy, the head Section 31 guy that's in Enterprise, not a fan of that character. Doesn't really answer your question though, does it? Can't really think of anyone, to be fair. Bad guys. Most of the bad guys do end up losing anyway, don't they? They don't really win. Yeah, I'm just going to leave my question there. Section 31. Okay, next question is from Daniel Halse, and he says, do you have a recommended starter roster for 8th edition 40k Army collection? I've got the Forgebane set, which gives me a Cryptic, 5 Immortals, 5 Lich Guard, and 3 Wraiths. But I don't really have a roster that I could just tell you now. I have made a video on, well, it's about the Start Collecting box sets, the new one. I have one on the old one as well. But I do cover Forgebane in that video as well, expanding on it and how to build the units, etc. So I sort of already have a video on it. So I'll link you up to that video in the description below if you want to check it out. But I don't really have a starting roster. I very rarely play lower point games anyway, and if I do, see, personally, I view any game that's 1750 or less, possibly 1500, but I consider any game that's like between up to 1500 points. In my mind, they're just fun games, so I'll use those games to try weird and wacky stuff and experiment with things, and maybe take units which you wouldn't normally take in, say, a 1750, 2000 point game, where I like to play 2000 points a bit more serious as such. And then the lower points games, I'll just take whatever I want just for fun. So I don't really have an army roster. to be fair on that. But yeah, I do have that video, so check that out. Next question is from Underdog Painting, and he says, how do you think Games Workshop can be even more popular? Or how do you think other companies can try to be as popular as Games Workshop? Okay. And if you can hear a child in the background, that is my daughter who's upstairs playing fairly loudly at the moment. How do I think Games Workshop can be even more popular? Well, I suppose like TV, internet, advertising, that would make them more popular. Possibly like an epic movie could make them more popular. I know a lot of people got into Games Workshop via the Dawn of War games. Another option, I suppose. How do I think other companies can try to be as popular? I don't think they necessarily should try to be. I suppose I can only put this in terms of, say, a YouTube search. You know, you search for, I don't know, whatever, say Space Marines. You search for Space Marines in YouTube and you get your top channels which just come up. And if you're making videos about Space Marines, you just can't compete with those top channels for that search. However, you are able to get close to them so that you can maybe come into the top 5 with some good keyword research. And I think that's probably what companies should aim to do, not necessarily try to beat Games Workshop or be better than them, but to get close to them so that then they get seen. And I think that can be, you know, just as successful. Sometimes if you're too successful as a company, it can be your downfall if you can't keep up with demand, etc. So yeah, I think probably that's what they should do. Just try, not necessarily try to get as popular as Games Workshop, but to just try to be recognised. And how do they do that? How do you think companies? Just by basically producing good quality, reasonably priced models in systems that people want to play, and some good promotional advertising activity, going to events and shows and sending stuff out to YouTubers to review and things. So yeah, I think that's probably the answer. Thank you, Bazza, for your question. So make sure I got the lid off. I have. So next question is from Jim White, and he says, have you planted any trees where you live, or were they all planted there before you moved in? Okay, so I lived in a few houses over the years. My t-shirt always goes to one side. Yeah, so I've had a few houses over the years. I am not a gardener. I actually absolutely sort of hate gardening. It just takes up time, wasted time. You do it, and then a couple of weeks later it's all grown back. And so my previous house, I concreted over the back garden. So literally I just had a concrete garden, so it was perfect. My current house, all the trees and stuff which are there, I definitely haven't planted, and I've taken a few of them out, and I've certainly cut them right down so they take years to grow. So I tried to keep my gardening down to absolute minimum as possible. Thanks for the question, Jim. Next up is from Peter Nicholas, and he says, if you lived in the 40k universe, which role would you ideally like to perform, i.e. a guardsman, a scribe, etc.? By the way, isn't CCG collectible card game? Absolutely, thank you, Peter. Yes, quite a few people told me about that, so that's what CCG stands for, collectible card games. It was a question I had last time, do I do any? And the answer is no. I don't play any. But yeah, Peter's question, what role would I be in the 40k universe? I would definitely be, I think I would be a civilian. I don't think I'd be like in the war or whatever. I think I'd just be a civilian. Yeah, minding my own business, keeping out of trouble. Yeah. That would be me. Okay, next question is from Hero of the Table. And he says, you are a big Star Trek fan. Yes, I do like Star Trek. Do you play any Star Trek tabletop games? Star Trek Fleet Battles, A Call to Arms, Starfleet, Star Trek Panic, Star Trek Frontiers, etc. Okay, none of those you listed. I think I know A Call to Arms. Is that a card game? Because I think I've got 2 packets of cards that I got as a present, but I've never played it. The only Star Trek game really that I've played is, I've got a couple of board games which I got from a charity shop once. I've played them a couple of times. But the only real game I play is Attack Wing, which is basically Star Trek's version of X-Wing. And it's a lot of fun. I enjoy it. Play it with a couple of buddies. Play it every so often. It's a nice relaxed change to 40k, quick, easy to play, not too much setting up. So yeah, we play that, although we don't play the new edition, we only play the first edition, so we haven't got the rules for all the new stuff. But for what we do with it, it suits us fine. But that's the only game. Thank you for the question. Next one is from Wizzard Wargaming, and he says, what is your favourite paint colour? I am really into orange at the moment. My favourite colour's changed to orange. I used to like red, not as a paint colour, but my favourite colour used to be red. And then it's been red, like I got a red sofa, etc. But then when I split up with my wife, I sort of got out of red, and my favourite colour now is orange. And I'm leaning towards trying to get some orange in some of my painting. However, purple is probably my favourite colour to paint. I like purple. Obviously I'm a big Prince fan, and obviously purple's his colour as well, so probably slightly influenced by that. But I am going to say purple. Okay, so the next question is from Spirit Warrior, and he says, do you think it's better to build a whole 2,000 point army, or build multiple armies, gradually building each one up unit by unit? Okay, so I think it depends, because I'm in a totally different place now to when I first started. So when I first started, we used to play unpainted. I used to build models and play them. My buddy never painted his armies. I grew up on that, and that was before the internet, etc. And it takes time to build and paint an army. Now, in the position that I'm at, I don't play a model until I've painted it. So I'm in a totally different position to what I was like. My advice really would be to concentrate on one army. It's going for multiple armies is a slippery slope. I've got 6 armies at the moment, and I should really stop, because I can't cope with 6 armies. I'm in an 8th edition, I'm barely able to play 2 with the time that I get to actually learn the rules for the armies and play them. So 7th edition seemed a bit easier, but for 8th edition I'm just really struggling to play more than 2 armies. So I think I would say stick to one, and I still would recommend that you, what I would recommend is probably you get enough models to play some smaller games, 500 points, 1,000 points, and work on painting those, and then sort of buy 1 unit at a time. But definitely don't go with 2 armies at the beginning. If you're playing, let's say you bought Forge Bane, I personally would say, unless you're playing with a friend, I would say pick one of the armies that you like and just concentrate on getting that finished first, rather than trying to do both. Like I said, unless you're doing them because you're sort of encouraging someone else to play with you. So yeah, definitely don't do a whole army, 2,000 points. The problem that you have with building before you paint as well is you can build, and then when it comes to painting it might be quite difficult to get to certain areas. So one unit at a time and one army at a time. Thanks for the question. Right, next question is from Pete from Mini Warzone. He is the Q&A king. If you haven't checked his channel out and everyone else's channel, their links are in the description below. Head on over, give them a sub. So Pete says, would you ever build and paint any Star Trek models? I haven't built or painted any Star Trek models. I would do, and I've considered it in the past. I nearly started a Necromunda team. I don't know what the team's called, but it's the team. I saw one of the models and they looked a little bit like Riker. They had a beard, and I was going to paint them as like a team of Rikers with the Star Trek uniform on. So I definitely would do, but I haven't. And the reason why I didn't do the Necromunda models was the models were going to be given to me by a buddy, but he lost them in a move or something, and it just never happened. Right, next question is from Jason Hynes. He says, do you collect anything pop culture related outside of 40k? For example, Star Wars, Transformers, figures, etc. I have a selection of Star Trek stuff, but I vow not to be a collector of that because there's so much. I enjoy it. I've got a few models, figures, but just a few here and there, really, that's it. I am a Prince fan, and I do have Prince stuff as well, the albums, t-shirts, etc. But really no, mainly, well, I collect Star Trek books, although I've stopped buying those even lately. So, no. It takes a lot of money, doesn't it, to collect stuff? So the answer is no. I'm not really a collector anymore, and I know myself, you see, because I can easily just become a massive collector of something if I put my mind to it. I mean, do you remember the craze of DVDs? Everybody wanted DVDs. I used to go out and buy a DVD like every other day. Massive collection, and anything that I start to collect, I go for it. So I pull myself back from that because I know how bad potentially it could get. Thanks for the question. Next one is from William Kuby. He says, have you seen the thing to fix gaps with crazy glue and baking soda? I have heard of this and seen it on toy car makeovers. Are there any neat tips like that you have? I have seen that. Yeah, it seems to work really well. Most of my tips and tricks I've already done videos on in the Back to Basics series, but I do sometimes use cocktail sticks to apply super glue. I hate super glue with brushes, and then sometimes super glue with the applicator still puts way too much on. So sometimes I'll put the super glue onto like a board and then get a cocktail stick and put the glue onto the cocktail stick and then dab it onto the area that I need it to be if it's a very small area. One thing that I can think of. Hope that helps. Thanks for the question. Right, next question is from Stretchy Kins, and they say, I was wondering if you had any recommendations on what strategies to use against certain armies. I haven't had much experience outside of orcs and Space Marines, and was wondering if you had any tips against any of the various armies in 40k. I don't know of a video on your channel like this for 8th edition, so I thought I might ask here. Okay, thank you for the question, and this seems quite a popular subject actually, because on the video that I made asking what Necron videos you would like to see, this was a topic that was on there. I haven't really got a video on it apart from I did the Necron tips video, like top 10 tips for playing Necrons, and this is a tough one because it's almost like list tailoring, which I don't tend to do. I play the list that I want to play, and I try to make the list work against whatever I'm going to face. I play my army, I play the mission, I don't necessarily play my opponent, and I think that's ingrained in me from playing the same player every week. So I play my buddy pretty much every week, and I have done for the last 10 odd years, and he only has 2 armies, Space Marines or Orcs, and I try not to tailor my list, because it's pretty obvious if you turn up with your opponent's house and he brings his Blood Angels out, and then you bring all your models, and oh, I've got, well, back in the day, AP3 guns and everything. You know, I'm taking star cannons on my Vipers, I've got star cannons on my Wave Serpents, and they can see that you've tailored the list to kill them, and then when you do kill them, it's like, well, that was fun. So I just don't do it. Sometimes I'll take the opposite of actually what I'm supposed to take, because it's just more fun for both people. However, it is a topic which people are asking about, so I might do a video. I might do some videos about dealing with certain armies, like dealing with Tau or dealing with Orcs or whatever. So maybe something for the future. But I do appreciate your question. Thank you very much. Right, next question is from Methos from Frost and Fists, and he says, hearing about the one that got away, your Necron Battlefleet Gothic army, do you have any other white wows in your hobby? What else have you always wanted but has slipped through your grasp? Good question, Methos. Is there anything else? The Battlefleet Gothic was the main one. There's a whole fleet, and I basically didn't have enough money to buy it. It was on eBay. Anything else? There's one thing. It's in my local sort of hobby shop where they sell second-hand items. Excuse me. And it's when I was collecting Eldar, and they had these Dire Avengers. They were painted. They were very nicely painted, but not in my colours. And they were quite cheap. They were like, I can't even remember, like £11 or something silly, £12 for 10 guys. They were a bargain, but I didn't buy them because they weren't painted, and I am an art about these models. Every time I went in there, they were there, so shall I get them, shall I not get them? And in the end, I decided, yeah, I think I will get them. They're only £11, £12. So I went one week to buy them, and they were sold. So that's the only thing really I can think that slips through my fingers. Okay, next question is from Victor Cass, and he says, did you ever participate in a painting contest? If not, what is holding you from participating? Maybe in a smaller local contest. I find them a way to calibrate my level with other painters. Yeah, I have, Victor, yes. I've been into a few, not loads, but I have to... Oh, that was nearly the coffee on the floor. Not loads, but I have been to some. So I've been... The tournaments that I went to recently, I submitted some models in that tournament, and I got nothing. I put my Avatar in there, and my Grey Hunters, possibly Long Fangs, I think. I'm not sure, but I basically didn't do very well. I think the Space Wolves, I think it's the same problem I had with the armies on parade, is although each model is like really dynamic, like really converted, everyone has a different pose, and I think they're painted to a very high standard. they don't pop because they're grey, and I think that's the problem with them. You know, when they're on the board, they just don't pop. So yeah, anyway, they didn't do very well. And then I submitted a few to a Games Workshop painting competitions. I think my avatar came joint third or joint second, I think it was, something like that. And then I put my Shadow Spectre in, which didn't get anywhere with that one. But yeah, I've done a few. They're fun. It's the trouble with that, with painting competitions. It is in, you know, it's whoever's judging it's opinion. I try, as long as I'm happy, then that's fine when I paint. But I'm certainly not against putting stuff in for painting competitions. So yeah, thank you, Victor, for the question. Next is Brush and Quill, and he says, you mention the green rods a lot for Necrons. I know some third parties sell not only green but other rod colours designed for those that wants them on their Necrons, etc. However, if Games Workshop had not gone with green, what other colour do you think would have looked good on the models? I think that all the colours would look pretty cool, to be fair. You know, red, blue, orange, maybe not yellow, purple. They're just like lightsabers, aren't they? It doesn't really matter what colour it is, it's just cool. Yeah. Probably red, maybe. I'm going to say red, but to be fair, I think any colour, yeah. Okay, thank you for the question. Next one is from MorkNGork. Yeah, MorkNGork. And he says, what do you think of Discovery and the Orville? I hate Discovery, but the Orville is hilarious. The way the storytelling goes feels like The Next Generation sometimes, so the Orville made Star Trek good again, in my opinion. Kind of been going downhill since Voyager ended. Okay. What do I think? This is going to be fun. Okay, thank you for the question. So, what do I think of Discovery? Okay, I'm watching season 2. I watch it with my daughter. Eldest daughter comes round on a Monday. We watch it, and we are enjoying it. However, there's a lot of things about it which really just don't sit well. However, I am viewing it, trying to view it for what it is. I'm not a fan of the spore drive. Why have they got that? The technology is way too advanced for the time that they've set it. Why have they set it in that time line? It should be set more in the future. They could do exactly what they've done now. Klingons are not Klingons. They are a weird race, and they could fit. I mean, that race doesn't look like Klingons. They're just not Klingons. So those could be set in the future. You could put that whole series in the future and it'll work just as well. Okay, they might not be able to have Spock in there and Pike and stuff, but who cares? We don't need those characters because they're the characters, and you know, they could just have new characters. Talking of the characters, I think the character, we're on season 2 now, and I feel like I don't really know half of the characters on that ship. You know, the bridge crew. I mean, I don't think I hardly know anyone's name on there. We haven't really been introduced. It's definitely not Star Trek storytelling. You know, in the old episodes you used to get, you know, an episode, it was about a particular character and you got to know the character. It was about storytelling. Discovery is more about special effects and whilst I do enjoy it, and it is good, and at the end of every episode it's like, oh, I want to watch the next one. You know, it's very modern, and you have to consider that they are competing with a lot of very good series at the moment. And for me, any Star Trek is good. It's good just to have the Star Trek, current new Star Trek. I am enjoying it, but there is quite a few things that grate on me. In particular, that whole spore drive thing. It's just ridiculous for the time period that they're in. Okay, season 1, I think they could have got away with it, and then season 2, the spore drive thing's like broken, doesn't work anymore, they can't use it, and then it's forgotten about. But no, season 2, they've still using the thing. Yeah. Okay, that's only the first part of the question. Right, next is what do you think of Discovery and the Orville? Okay, the Orville, yeah. I've not watched all of it. I have watched, I think, about 4 or 5 episodes. And you're right, it's just like the old Star Trek, but has humour to it. And I don't like that. Yeah. Funny films, funny movies and series is not my thing. Not really into comedies. Don't mind a comedy now and again, but it's not my thing. It's like my least thing that I would watch would be a comedy, and it puts me off Orville quite a lot. To the point, yeah, that as I said, I watched about 4 or 5 episodes and just stopped watching it. Basically, I probably should go back to it. But yeah, it seemed quite good, but I just, when that guy, I don't know what he was, some sort of alien sitting on an egg or something in one of the episodes, like trying to hatch an egg or something stupid, I was like, what is this about? I know it's probably going against belief, because I know that a lot of people think Orville's like the best thing since sliced bread for Star Trek, but I just didn't dig it that much. And in my opinion, it's been going downhill since Voyager. To know, actually, I liked Enterprise. I thought it was really good, especially the Xindi timeline and everything. Such a shame that was axed. Had so much more potential. Anyway, that is it. So thank you for the question. Next question is from Leon T66, and he says, which army do you least like to play against? Which army do you think is a fun vacuum? Could be the same answer. A fun vacuum. So I assume that means beating, an army that I like to beat, I assume. Which army do I least like to play against? I know I said almost sort of answer this, I think, with the Thousand Suns. No, I don't dislike Thousand Suns, just find them, they're always just a hard army to play against. And I haven't really played against enough armies, enough times to really have an opinion. I enjoy playing against orcs, just because I think that's what most people like about orcs. There's just so many of them, you can just get a bucket load. They're still there on the table, still winning the games, but at least you have fun killing stuff. So I'm going to say orcs, I think, is probably the most fun vacuum. Okay, sorry, I had to change the battery. Right, next question is from World of Monsters. I'm still not sure what exactly Forge World is. Are they part of Games Workshop or just own a license to make related minis? Good question, Arthur. Okay, so I think the best way to describe it is Forge World is like a sister company of Games Workshop. As far as I'm aware, it's the same company, but Forge World does resin, and they're sort of online. They sell it online or at Warhammer World, which is like the Games Workshop headquarters, but they don't go into the Games Workshop stores for sale. and then Games Workshop generally make the plastic and now fine cast, which they're basically using in the metal injection molds, but they're using, rather than metal, they're using resin, but it's not the same quality resin as you get from Forge World. So I think that's pretty much it in a nutshell. If there's something more that you know of, then put a comment below. Let Arthur know from World of Monsters, and don't forget to check his channel out, because if you're not subscribed to World of Monsters, you should be, because Arthur is an awesome guy. Right, next question is from Pavel Notorado. And he says, have you ever considered using an air wing detachment with amalgamated targeting relay? Did I say that? Oh, I pronounced it first. I was dreading that question, so oh no, how am I going to say that on camera? Very powerful, big capital letters, very powerful. I'm using it along with my assault Necrons under Necron Dynasty, shooting from air, getting into close combat quickly, getting into the rear area through the Veil of Darkness, getting great results. What do you think? I think that, yeah, with the points reduction, the Doom Scythes with that particular stratagem, it's definitely very viable, and I've seen some of the newer tournament lists which are coming out have 3 of those flyers. I only have 1 flyer. It's magnetised between the Doom Scythe and a Night Scythe, so I've not been able to play it. I do need probably more flyers. Not a huge fan of the flyers. Not because I dislike the model, but I'm just too old school. You know, some of the newer models, I don't know, I think it's just how I brought up with playing Necrons really, and flyers had never been a part of Necrons, so I've never really got into them that much. I bought one just because, you know, why not? But yeah, I think I will buy some more. I do actually have a second one, which I was given, which I need to strip and build and paint, so could happen. But yeah, it does seem very good, especially with the points reductions anyway. Thank you for the question. Next question is from IroncladHunter, and he says, are you still planning on doing commissions, and if so, when will you start? I am planning on doing commissions still. I need to finish my Noise Marines. Once they are finished, I think that's the trouble, isn't it? I've got lots of projects for myself, so I've got my Noise Marines to finish, and then I want to move on to doing some Necron projects. I need to do my Tomb Blades, for example, and then I want to do my Demonettes as well. I want to finish the Emperor's Children army, preferably this year. However, yeah, once the Noise Marines are finished, I think I might be doing a little commission for Capatan Morgan's Wargames, maybe painting up some of his orc characters, which would be fun. So I think that's probably when it's going to start, and then we'll just see what happens from there. So yeah, it's definitely going to happen. Right, got a note here, laptop. So I need to get my laptop because the next question is on that. Okay, so this question came in after I printed that sheet. I have a question, I haven't put down the person's name, so sorry about that. But the question was, how do you go about the lore if your daughter asks you about your armies, particularly the Emperor's Children? I have a 6-month-old daughter who I imagine will ask questions about my Warhammer 40k stuff one day. The 40k lore can be quite grim-dark for a child. Okay, so, well, my daughter is 10. I'm not really into the fluff, or as you know already, so I mean, I just described my Emperor's Children army as bad Space Marines. She knows what a Space Marine is. They're like the good guys, and I always say like Chaos Space Marines are the bad guys. And then she knows what demons are, so I just say that, you know, these guys are being taken over by demons. and pretty much all I've said to her. She hasn't really asked about, I don't think she knows that 40k is a universe. She doesn't really need to know that either. I haven't been teaching her the lore. You know, she's Necrons, like robots, and then Tyranids obviously are like aliens, and then the Space Marines are like the good guys, and like I said, Chaos Space Marines, the bad guys. Eldar, just like another race. So I haven't really gone into that. That's not really a problem at all. And maybe when she's older, I can go into more depth if she wants to know it. But I don't think I need to say much more than that. So yeah, thank you for the question. And that is the last question. So if you've got a question for me, then pop it down in the comments box below, and I'll see you in the next video. Beam me up.